onto my face. The Chancellor put his face into his hands and go, then looked up and surprised me with a wry smile. I realized he wasn't particularly cool when his face wasn't locked in a stern expression. Probably only on the far side of 40. You don't look like someone who knows he's going to be whipped. I pushed the crowd aside. I imagine I'm here, sir. He gave me an odd look. It took me a while to recognize it as the one I'd grown accustomed to in the truth. He opened his mouth to speak, but I jumped on the words before he could say it. I'm not as young as I was. I know. I just wish other people knew it too. I imagine that he gave me a long look before pushing himself up from the table. He held out a hand. Welcome to the Arcana. I shook my head silently and we parted ways. I worked my way outside and was surprised to see that it was full night. I breathed in a lungful of sweet spring air and felt my brain in circles. Then someone touched me on the shoulder. I jumped fully 2 feet into the air and narrowly avoided falling uncinnered in the howling, scratching, biting blur that had been my only method of defense in Tarbeek. He took a step back, startled from his struggle.
All right, guys, we're gonna do a modified version of the Ghost, playing 9-ball. We're gonna do 10 racks. We're gonna take ball in hand every time we foul. So anytime we break, dry, scratch, whatever, any foul. We're going to count our innings as we go, and at the end we are going to divide the number of innings that we have by the number of racks that we played. So if it takes me 25 innings to get through 10 racks, then my average is going to be 2.5. Gives us a goalpost, something to work towards, and that's what we're doing. So this will be session 2. I've done this once before, and wish me luck.
By the time I got back to the 4th floor of the Muse, rumor of my non-expulsion and admission into the Arcana had spread ahead of me. I was greeted by a smattering of applause from my bunkmates. It was not well known. Some of my bunkmates offered odd congratulations, while Basil made a special point of coming forward to shake my hand. I had just climbed up to a sitting position on my bunk and was explaining to Basil the difference between a single whip and a six-tail when the 3rd floor steward came looking for me. He instructed me to pack up my things, explaining that Arcana students were located in the West Wing. Everything I owned still fit neatly into my travel sack, so it was no great chore. As the steward led me away, there was a chorus of goodbyes from my fellow first-term students. The West Wing bunks were similar to those I had left behind. It was still rows of beds, but here they weren't stacked too high. Each bed had a small wardrobe and desk in addition to a trunk. Nothing fancy, but definitely a step up. The biggest difference was in the attitude of the things. There were scowls and glares, though for the most part I was pointedly ignored. It was a cheery reception, especially in the light of the welcome I had just received from my non-Arcana bunkmates. It was easy to understand why. Most students attend university for several terms before being admitted into the Arcana. And they work their way up through the ranks the hard way. I hadn't. Only about 3/4 of the bunks were full. I picked one in the back corner, away from the others. I hung my one extra shirt and my cloak in the wardrobe and put my travel sack in the trunk to put to bed. I lay down and stared at the ceiling. My bunk lay outside the light of the other students' candles and sympathy lamps. I was finally a member of the Arcana, in some ways, exactly where I had always wanted to be. Chapter 41, Friend's Blood. The next morning, I woke early, washed up, and grabbed a bite to eat at the mess. Then, because I had nothing to do before my whipping at noon, I strolled the university aimlessly. I wandered through a few apothecaries and bottle shops, admired the well-kept lawns and gardens. Eventually, I came to rest on a stone bench in a wide courtyard. Too anxious to think of doing
Rock 2,
anything
inning
better,
2.
I simply sat and enjoyed the weather, watching a few scraps of waste paper along the cobblestones. It wasn't too long before Williams rolled over and sat himself next to me without invitation. His characteristic sealish dark hair and eyes made him seem older than Simon and me, but he still had the slightly awkward look of a boy who wasn't quite in man size yet. Nervous? He asked with the harsh burr a Seattle accent makes. I'll have to think about it, actually, I said. Willem grunted. We were both quiet for a minute while we watched the students walk past. A few of them paused in their conversations and pointed at me. I quickly grew tight with their attention. Are you doing anything right now? Sitting, he said simply. Breathing. Clever. I can see why you're doing that. Are you busy for the next hour or so? He shrugged and looked at me expectantly. Will you show me where Master Arnold is? He told me to stop by. After. Certainly, he said, pointing to one of the courtyard's outlets. Medica is on the other side of our house. We made our way around the massive windowless block that is the archive. Willem pointed. That is Medica. It was a large, oddly shaped building. It looked like a taller, less rambling version of Maine's. Bigger than I thought it would be, I mused. All for teaching medicine? He shook his head. They do much business in tending the sick. They never turn anyone away because they can't pay. Really? I looked at Medica again, thinking of Master Arnold. That's surprising. You need not pay in advance, he clarified. After you recover, he paused, and I heard the clear implication in the recovery. You settle accounts. If you have no hard coin, you work until your debt is. He paused.
This is rack 3, inning 3.
What is the word for share? He asked, holding out his hands with the palms up and moving them up and down as if they were the pans of a scale. Wade? I suggested. He shook his head. No. Share. He stressed the word and brought his hands even with each other. Oh, I mimicked the gesture. Balanced. He nodded. You work until your debt is balanced. You leave without settling their debts. I gave a grim chuckle. Not that surprising. What's the point of running away from an arcanist when a couple drops of blood? We eventually came to another corridor. In the center of it was a pennant pole with a stone bench underneath it. I didn't need to guess who was going to be tied to it in an hour or so. There were about 100 students milling around, doing things in an oddly festive air. It's not usually this big, Willem said apologetically, but a few masters cancel classes. Hem, I'm guessing, and Brandor. Willem nodded. Hem holds reverence. He paused to give emphasis to his understatement. He'll be there with his whole coat of. He pronounced that last word slowly. Is that the right word? Coterie?
Rack 3, inning 4.
And Willem looked vaguely self-satisfied. Then he frowned. That makes me remember something strange in your language. People are always asking me about the word continue. Endlessly they say, how is the road continue? What does it mean? I smiled. It's an idiomatic piece of the language. That means, I know what an idiot is. What does this one mean? Oh, I said slightly embarrassed. It's just a greeting. It's kind of like asking, how was your day? Or, how's everything going? It is also a idiom. The language is thick with nonsense. I wonder how any of you understand each other. How is everything going? Going where? He shook his head. Anyway, apparently, I grinned at him. Tuanbogen Okap I said, using one of my favorite Seattle idioms. It meant, Don't let it make you crazy, but it translated literally as, don't put a spoon in your eye. We turned away from the courtyard and walked around the university aimlessly for a while. Willem pointed out a few more notable buildings, including several good taverns, the alchemy complex,
This is rack
the
4,
Sears
inning
Company,
4.
and both the sanctioned and unsanctioned brothels. We strolled past the featureless stone wall of the archive, past a cooper, a bookbinder, and a apothecary. A thought occurred to me. Do you know much herb lore? He shook his head. Chemistry mostly, and I dabble in alchemy with puppets sometimes. Dabble, I said, emphasizing the bug sound for it. Dabble is something else. Who's puppet? Will paused. Hard to describe. He waved a hand to dismiss the question. I'll introduce you later. What do you need to know about herbs? Nothing really. Could you do me a favor? He nodded, and I pointed to the nearby apothecary. Go buy me 2 scruples of malwood. I held up 2 iron drabs. Tissue cover. Why me? He asked wearily. Because I don't want the fellow in there giving me the "you're awfully young" look. I frowned. I don't want to have to deal with that today. I was nearly dancing with anxiety by the time Willem got back. It was busy, he explained, seeing the impatient expression on my face. He handed me a small paper packet and a loose jingle of change. What is it? It's to settle my stomach. Breakfast isn't sitting too well, and I don't fancy about halfway through being lit. I bought a cider at a nearby pub, using mine to wash down the melon, trying not to drink the bitter, chalky taste. Before too long, we heard the belling tower striking noon. I think I must go to class. Will tried to mention it nonchalantly, but it came out almost strangled. He looked up at me, embarrassed, and a little pale under his dark complexion. I am not fond of blood. He gave a shaky smile. My blood runs. I don't plan on doing much bleeding, I said. But don't worry. You've got me through the hard part. Wait. Thank you. We parted ways and I fought down a wave of guilt. After knowing me less than 3 days, Will had gone out of his way to help me. He could have taken the easy route and resented my quick admittance into the Arcanum as many others did. Instead, he had done a friend's duty, helping me pass a difficult time, and I had repaid him with lies. As I walked toward the pennant pole, I felt the weight of the crowd's eyes on me. How many women? 200? 3? After a certain time, the numbers ceased to matter. And
Rack 5, inning 5.
a faceless mass of a crowd. My stage training held me firm under their stares. I walked steadily toward the pennant pole amid a sea of susurrus murmuring. I didn't carry myself proudly, as I knew that might turn me against me. I was not repentant either. I carried myself well, as my father had taught me,
Rack
with
5, inning
neither
6.
nor regret on my face. As I walked, I felt the knowledge begin to take firm hold of me. I felt perfectly awake while everything around me grew almost painfully. Time seemed to slow as I approached the center of the courtyard. As my feet came down the cobblestone, I watched the small puffs of dust erase. I felt the breath of wind catch the hem of my cloak and curl underneath to cool the sweat between my shoulder blades. It seemed for a second that should I wish to, I could count the faces in the crowd around me, like flowers in a field. I spotted none of the masters in the crowd except for him. He stood near the pennant pole, looking pig-like in his smugness. He folded his arms in front of himself, letting the sleeves of his black master's robe hang loosely at his sides. He caught my eye, and his mouth worked out into a soft smirk, and I knew it was meant for me. I resolved that I would bite out my own tongue before I gave him the satisfaction of very frightened or he would sing. Instead, I gave him a wide, confident smile, then looked away, as if he didn't sing.
Mark 5, inning 7.
Then I was at the penny pole. I heard someone reading something, but the words were just a vague buzzing to me as I removed my cloak and laid it across the back of the stone bench that sat at the base of the pole. Then I began to unbutton my shirt, as casually as I was preparing to take a bath. A hand on my wrist stopped me. The man that had read the announcement gave me a smile that tried to be comforting. "You don't need to go shirts," he said. "They saved you from a big mistake. I'm not going to ruin a perfectly good shirt," he said. He gave me an odd look, then shrugged and ran a length of rope through an iron ring above our heads. "I'll need your hands." I gave him a flat look. "You don't need to worry about my running off. It's to keep you from falling over if you pass out." I gave him a hard look. "If I pass out, you will do whatever you wish," I said firmly.
Rack 6, inning 7.
I will not be tied. Something in my voice gave him pause. He didn't offer me any argument as I climbed onto the stone bench beneath the pole. I gripped it firmly with both hands, smooth and cool. I found it oddly comfortable. I focused on it as I lowered myself into the heart of stone. I heard people moving away from the base of the pole. Then the crowd quieted, and there was no sound but the soft hiss and crack of the whip being loosened behind me. I was relieved I was to be whipped with a single whip. In Tarbian, I had seen the terrible, bloody hash a six-peg could make of a man's back. There was a sudden hush. Then, before I could brace myself, there came a sharper crack than once before. I felt a line of dim red fire race down my back. I gritted my teeth, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Even with the precautions I had taken, I expected a sharp, piercing pain. And a second flash came. Its crack was louder, and I heard it through my body rather than with my ears. I felt an odd looseness across my back. I held my breath, knowing I was torn and bleeding. Everything went red for a moment, and I leaned against the rough tar beam of the pole. The third lash came before I was ready for it. It licked up to my left shoulder, then tore nearly all the way down to my left hip. I grit my teeth, refusing to make a sound. I kept my eyes open and watched the world grow black around the edges for a moment, while snapping back with sharp right hooks. Then, ignoring the burning across my back, I set my feet on the bench and loosened my clenched fingers from the iron ring. A young man jumped forward as if he expected to have to touch me. I gave him a scathing look and backed away. I gathered my shirt and cloak, laid them carefully over one arm, and left the courtyard, ignoring the silent crowd around me. Chapter 42. Loveless. It could be worse, that much is certain. Master Arlo's round face was serious as the circle.
Rack 7, inning 7.
Simply well, but I should have known better with your skill. I sat on the edge of a long table deep inside the medical. Arlo prodded my back gently as he spoke. But as I say, it could be worse. 2 cuts, and as cuts go, you couldn't have done better. Really shallow and straight. If you do as I tell you, you'll have nothing but smooth silver scars to show the ladies how brave you are. He stopped in front of me and raised his white eyebrows enthusiastically behind the round rims of his spectacles. Eh? His expression wrung a smile from me. He turned to the young man that stood by the door. Go and fetch the next radar on the list. Tell them only that they are to bring what is needful to repair a straight, shallow laceration. The boy turned and left, his feet pattering away in the distance. You would provide excellent practice for one of my runout, Arlo said cheerfully. Your cut is a good straight one with little chance of complication, but but there is not much to you. He prodded my chest with a wrinkled finger and made a tisk noise with his tongue against his teeth. Just bones and a little happy. It's easier for us if we have more meat to work with. But, he shrugged, bringing his shoulders almost to his ears and back down. Things are not always ideal. That is what a young visitor must learn more than anything. He looked up at me as if expecting a response. I nodded seriously. It seemed to satisfy him, and his squinting smile returned. He turned and opened a cabinet that stood against one of the walls. Give me just a moment, and I will numb the burning that must be all across your back. He clinked a few bottles together as he rummaged around on the shelf. It's all right, Master Arwell, I said. You can stitch me closed the way I am. I had 2 scruples of knowledge numbing me, and I knew better than to mix anesthetic out of the way. He paused with one arm deep into the cabinet and had to withdraw it to turn and look at me. Have you ever had stitches before, my boy? Yes, I said honestly. Do we have anything to soften the pain? I nodded again. As I sat on the table, my eyes were slightly higher than his. He looked up at me skeptically. Let me see then, he said, as if he didn't quite believe me. I pulled my pant leg over my knee, gritting my teeth as the motion tugged on my back. Eventually, I revealed a hand-span scar on my outer thigh above my knee from when Pike had stabbed me with his bottle glass knife back in Carbine. Arwell looked at it closely, holding his glasses with one hand. He gave it one gentle prod before straightening. Sloppy, he pronounced with a mild distaste. I had thought it was a rather good job. My cord broke halfway through, I said stiffly. I wasn't working under ideal circumstances. Arlo was silent for a moment, stroking his upper lip with a finger as he watched me through half-lidded eyes. And do you enjoy this sort of thing? He asked curiously. I laughed at his expression, but it was cut short when dull pain blossomed across my back. No, Master. I was just taking care of myself as best I could. He continued looking at me, still stroking his lower lip. Show me where the gut broke. I pointed. It isn't the sort of thing you forget. He gave the old scar a closer examination and prodded it again before looking up. You may be telling me the truth. He shrugged. I do not know, but I would think that if... He trailed off and peered speculatively into my eyes. Reaching up, he pulled one of the lids back. Look up, he said perfunctorily. Frowning at whatever he saw, Arlo picked up one of my hands, pressed the tip of my fingernail firmly, and watched intently for a second or two. His frown deepened as he moved forward, took hold of my chin with one hand, opened my mouth, and smelled it. Tennyson? He asked, then answered his own question. No, of course. I must be getting old not to notice it sooner. It also explains why I'm not bleeding all over my nice-clean table. He gave me a serious look. How much? I didn't see any way of denying it. 2 scruples. Howell was silent for a while as he looked at me. After a moment, he removed his spectacles and rubbed them fiercely against his cup. Replacing them, he looked straight at me. It is no surprise that a boy might feel ridiculous enough to hurt himself for it. He looked sharply. But why, if he was so afraid, would he remove his shirt beforehand? He frowned again. You will explain all of this to me. If you lie to me before, admit it, and all will be well. I know boys tell foolish stories sometimes. His eyes glittered behind the glass of the spectacles. If you lie to me now, neither I nor any of mine will stitch you. I will not be lied to. He crossed his arms in front of the sun. So, explain. I do not understand what is going on here. That, more than anything else, I do not like.
Rack 9, inning 7.
My last resort. My teacher, Avonby, taught me as much as he could about the visitor's arts. I exclaimed. When I ended up looking at the I took care of myself. I gestured to my duty. I didn't wear my shirt today because I only have 2 shirts. And it has been a long time since I've had as many as that. And the null root? He asked. I sighed. I don't fit in here, sir. I'm younger than everyone, and a lot of people think I don't belong. I upset a lot of students by getting into the Arcanum so quickly, and I've managed to get on the wrong side of Master Hem. All those students, and Hem and his friends, they're all watching me, waiting for some sign of weakness. I took a deep breath. I took the Nulroot because I didn't want to faint. I needed to let them know that they couldn't hurt me. I've learned that the best way to stay safe is to make your enemies think you can't be hurt. It sounded ugly to say it so starkly, but it wasn't true. I looked at him for fun. There was a long silence as Arlo looked at me, his eyes narrowing slightly behind his spectacles, as if he was trying to see something inside him. He brushed his upper lip with his finger again before he began slowly to speak. I suppose if I were older, he said quietly enough to himself, I would say it would be obvious that our students
Rack 9, inning 8.
squabbling with some noise. He paused again, still stroking his lip absentmindedly. Then his eyes twinkled upward around the edges as he smiled. But I am not so old as that. Not yet. Not by half. Anyone who thinks boys are innocent and sweet has never been a boy himself or has forgotten it. And anyone who thinks men are hurtful and cruel at times must not leave his house often. And he has certainly never been a visitor. We see the effects of cruelty more than any other. Before I could respond, he said, close your mouth, mister, or I would feel obliged to put some vile coffee in. Here they come. The last was said to 2 students entering the room. One was the same assistant who had shown me here. The other was, surprisingly, a young woman. Ah, Rela Mola, Arlo enthused, all signs of our serious discussion passing lightly from his face. You have heard that your patient has 2 straight clean lacerations. What have you brought to remedy the situation? Cold linen, hook needle, guts, alcohol, and iodine, she said briskly. She had green eyes that stood out in her pale face. What? Arlo corrected. No sympathy wax? No, Master Arlo, she responded, parrying a little at his tone. And why not? She hesitated. Because I don't need it. Arlo seemed mollified. Yes, of course you do. Very good. Did you wash before you came here? Nolan nodded, short blonde hair bobbing with the motion of her head. Then you have wasted your time and effort, he said sternly. But think of all the germs of disease that you might have gathered in a long walk through the passageway. Wash again, and we will begin. She washed with a thorough briskness at a nearby basin. Arlo helped me lay face down on the table. Has the patient been numbed? She asked.
Last rack.
No, I couldn't see her face. I heard a shadow of
Rack 10, inning 8.
Anesthetized, Arlo corrected. Do you have a good eye for detail, Lola? No, he has not. Now, what would you do if an expert showed you that he has no need for such things? He claims to have self-control like a bar of Ramsden steel and will not flinch when you stitch him. Arlo's tone was serious, but I could detect a hint of amusement hiding underneath. Mola looked at me, then back to Arlo. I would tell him he was being foolish, she said after a brief pause. And if he persisted in his claims that he needed no numbing agent, there was a longer pause for Mola. doesn't seem to be bleeding much at all, so I would proceed. I would also make it clear to him that if he moved overmuch, I would tie him to the table and treat him as I saw fit for his well-being. Arnold seemed a little surprised at her response. Yes, very good. So, quote, do you still want to forego an anesthetic? Thank you, I said politely. I do not need one. Very well, Mola said, as if resigning herself. First, we will clean and sterilize the wound. The alcohol stunk, but that was the worst of it. I tried my best to relax as Mola talked her way through the procedure. Arnold kept up a steady stream of comments and advice. I occupied my mind with other things and tried not to twitch at the knowledge of dull jabbed in the needle. She finished quickly and proceeded to bandage me with quick efficiency on a knife. As she helped me to a sitting position and wound linen around me, I wondered if all Arnold's students were as well trained as this one. She was making her final knots behind me when I felt a vague, feather-like touch on my shoulder, almost insensible to the knowledge that numbed me. He has not been seen, I heard her use, presumably to Arnold. Relax, Arnold said severely. Such comments are not professional. I am disappointed by your lack of sense. I was referring to the nature of the scar you can expect to have, she responded scathingly. I imagine it will be little more than a pale line, provided we can avoid tearing open his wound. Arnold said. Yes, of course. And how should he avoid that? Mola walked around to stand in front of me. Avoid motions like this. She held her hands in front of me. Or this. She held them high over her head. Avoid over-quick motions of any kind, running, jumping, climbing. The damage may come off in 2 days. Do not get it.
All right, so that is
She looked away from me to Arnold.
0.8.
Very good, Bernard. You are dismissed. He looked at the younger boy who had watched him throughout the procedure. The wind goes well, Gary. If anyone asks, I will be in my study. Thank you.
So the last one I did was 1.7, so I did a lot better this time. So this is my second one. I'd like to do 10 of these and then combine all the numbers and come out with my average. That's the point.
I said honestly.
All right, I think I'm done for the night. Have a good night, guys.